ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। So we were looking at Bhagavan as understood in our tradition. I also told you that we can even give up the word God. God is an English word which comes with its own theological connotations. Okay, so let us use Bhagavan or Ishvara, which is used in our tradition, and they have a certain meaning. Bhaga means sixfold qualities are understood: total overlordship, all power, all fame, glory, all wealth, all knowledge, and total dispassion and freedom. In fact, these things are all there in complete or full form. Okay, with Bhagavan. We also have all these things, in fact. That is why we are called an Amsha of Ishvara, or we are like a part or an individual expression of the totality. Because we also have some overlordship, correct? You have a certain overlordship over an ant. You can do anything you want. But you can't do the same thing with reference to an elephant. Similarly, you have some power. Everybody has some glory, some fame, at least within your family you are known, correct? And everybody has some wealth, some resources, at least 2 hands and limbs we have. We can do something. And all of us have knowledge, although it is limited. The more we know, the more our ignorance also keeps increasing. That is the nature of our knowledge, because we have to know through our mind. But Ishvara need not know through any mind or anything. Ishvara already has all knowledge without the necessity to know it newly through any means of knowledge. And Ishvara has total dispassion. There is no likes or dislikes or wants or all these things. Without any wants, if one is able to be happy without wanting something, or without wanting to get something, or without wanting to give up something, that is Sarva Vairagya, which is also really freedom, in fact. Freedom from all limitations and wants. So this is said in Vishnu Purana. Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashashas shriyaha jnana vairagyayoschaiva shannam bhaga itirana. So like this we understand Bhagavan. Okay. And there is one more, even in Vishnu Purana itself, again, particularly the all-knowing nature of Ishvara is given in more detail here. Because all knowledge means we cannot even really fathom it. The one who knows the creation and the dissolution totally of this entire universe, who has complete knowledge of each and every being's birth and their life and their death, etc. So, this all knowledge about all the beings, the one who has is Bhagavan. So like this, Bhagavan is understood as one who has all knowledge and one who is all pervading also. One who is manifest as this world itself. So in fact, creation and destruction and all is only a provisional word for us. There is no real creation. It's only always manifestation and resolution, okay, or dissolution, whatever you can call it. And we also saw that another important thing in our tradition is the idea that there are 2 results for every action you perform. Okay, the drishta phalam, or immediately experienced or seen result, is what you experience, correct? If you do something right, you feel good about it, you have a certain satisfaction, your self-esteem goes up. Okay, and if you do something wrong, you have fear and guilt. And in your own vision, you know that you did something wrong, correct? So your self-esteem goes down. But that is not the only thing. There is also an unseen result or adrishta. Okay, adrishta literally means unseen. Although it is sometimes or it is many times translated in English as luck. Luck is really not the right translation of adrishta. Okay, luck means it also has a chance. It is arbitrary. But here when we say adrishta phala, it is from your own karma it is coming, correct? Whatever you did, if you did something right, you have accumulated some punya. If you did something wrong in a given situation, you have accumulated papa. And that will then fructify itself as a pleasant experience for punya or unpleasant experience for papa. So this is the law of karma, we can say. So all of us are born with certain karma, and this punya and papa is what is called karma, and it is a matter of belief. Okay, don't ask me is there any proof, can I see with a microscope whether there is any punya sticking to one's body. Means you cannot do all that. So we say straight away, whatever is to be believed has to be believed. But what we believe should be believable. It should not be against logic. It should not be against our experience. It should not be against established knowledge. Okay, the belief should be believable. In fact, we'll talk about that belief being believable in more detail later. But our experience is that our effort we always put in action. But in spite of our effort, the results are coming in certain manner, correct? It can be more than your expectation. That means that unknown variable has enhanced the results for you. Or it can be less than what you expected for your effort. Means some papa has taken its toll on you, okay? Or it is as per your expectation. There is no papa or punya, it is as per your effort only, whatever you got. Or sometimes it is totally opposite. You could not even complete whatever you started, you ended up somewhere else. Okay, that is all like a major papa, we have to say, correct? That means this kind of experience is there for everybody. In spite of our effort, the results of action are a function of some other variables also, which are all not known to us. It's all unknown variables. So this unknown variable only we are saying is we call really punya and papa. Okay, the main part of this unknowns is the punya papa, that unknown factor, which also determines the result of your action. So this is what we have to accept. We have to believe this, and this is in keeping with our general day-to-day experiences. So it is not something difficult to believe. Now, I think up to this point we saw even before. So now let us try to understand a little bit more, because if karma is there, then everybody has a question, what about purushartha or free will? Okay, this is a very common question, or everybody has this. So we will also try to understand how this karma itself is talked about. So all of us have accumulated karma. Again, you cannot ask when did this start. The creation itself is a beginningless cycle for us. So you cannot really ask when did it start. It is a beginningless cycle. That means there is no first karma. Always we have had accumulated karma. and that is called Sanchita Karma. In fact, the reason for this very Srishti or creation or universe coming into being itself is stated as the necessity for the beings to enjoy their karma. That is why this whole world itself is created. Okay, if you wanted to know the purpose of this creation itself, why did Bhagavan create? Means Bhagavan does not have any need to create. Understand that. Bhagavan is beyond likes and dislikes, is already complete. So Bhagavan does not have any need, any pressure to create this universe. Then why did this universe get created? Means the answer for that is so that all the jiva, the individuals, okay, can experience their karma, because everybody has accumulated karma and this karma will be exhausted only by experiencing the results of that. So that's why Bhagavan has started this Srishti, this creation, is one way of looking at it. Again, so this unlimited accumulated karma is there in everybody's account. Out of that, some karma only is the reason or cause for this particular life. Okay. So along with this karma, we have to then believe in life after life after life. Okay. That also is a reasonable belief, I think. Why? Because even in our regular material world, all of you will know that there is something called law of conservation of mass, law of conservation of energy. Like this, energy and mass can neither be created nor destroyed, but they only change their forms. This is basic science, correct? Even high school students should know that there is something called law of conservation of mass, law of conservation of energy. Now, why should life also end? Correct? There is something called life, correct? Just by putting together all the cells or whatever, because body is mostly 75% water. Some space also is there in stomach and other places, and rest of it is some organic matter. Okay, carbon, nitrogen, and all that. Now, by putting together all these things, even till today, nobody is able to create life in the laboratory. Understand that. Maybe in future, scientists may be able to do it, but till now, they have not been able to create something called life. That means, but life is there. The body, only when it is alive, it is able to do things, it is able to respond to stimuli. Otherwise, it is a dead body and it doesn't even then, it doesn't have the ability to stay. It decays, in fact, unless you put it into some kind of freezer or you have to embalm it. Even then, it is not really regular body, correct? It becomes mummified. So there is something called life. We call it prana. Okay. So the understanding of prana in our tradition is much more. It is not just alone. Life is the main part, but all the physiological functions like breathing, digesting, flow of blood in your body, correct? Even excretion. All these things are functions of prana. Different. In fact, we even give different names for all this prana. So that is called prana. Why should prana alone be destroyed? Even though the physical body becomes unfit to support life, life goes and takes another body. That is our belief. Let me put it, it is belief. You don't have to give any proof and all that, but some people, in fact, nowadays even say that there is proof, because again, whether that is a proof or not, people may not accept. But what proof they are giving? There are many child prodigies. How do you explain that? Unless they have had some kind of a teaching or some talent in the previous life, that only is is manifesting itself in this life as in the whatever talent they have as a child prodigy, or there has been lot of documented studies where children have remembered their past lives. Okay, it has been documented, and they have gone and checked also whether whatever they are saying is true. But instead of, in spite of all these things also, many people may not accept that as a proof that there is rebirth and all that. They can give some other explanation. So better to leave it in the realm of belief. But again, this belief also is highly believable. Understand that. This belief is not against any of our experience. In fact, it goes along with our experience. So any belief which is reasonable and which is part of our traditional knowledge, we should accept it as belief. There is nothing wrong in being a believer or believing certain things. There is another problem nowadays with all these things. As though if you are believing something, as though it is somehow you are not rational and all that people think. That is not true. In fact, I will explain about this later when we talk about what is knowledge and what is a means of knowledge. We will talk in more detail about this. But anyway, so karma, rebirth, all these things are highly believable, reasonable beliefs. We have that. So your life itself is there because you have to exhaust a certain karma. So this life, current life, has started with some karma in your bank already. That is what is called prarabdha karma. Prarabdha means it has started fructifying. That is why you were born. You took a body. That body itself is result of the karma which has started. In fact, even astrology and all in our tradition comes into this. In fact, along with this law of karma only, astrology also is there. Otherwise, astrology has no meaning. Why? Because astrology, understand, does not predict your future. This is another mistake. Okay, astrology does not predict your future really. What does astrology then predict or model? I would say it is a model. Again, some people say the planets are really causing you something, electromagnetic waves and all that. We don't have to give such fantastic explanations and all that. It need not be causative. Understand that. Correlation is good enough for a modeling. So what do we model in astrology? The astrology based on when you were born, and at that time, according to their own model, planets are all there in certain houses, let us say. Then the planets are moving, correct? So based on this movement, they are able to model your prarabdha karma. Understand that. Astrology is a model which is showing your prarabdha karma. That means according to the prarabdha, what is likely to happen in your life. That is why they are able to give you what is known as prayaschitta karma also. Prayaschitta means what? You are trying to now mitigate or rectify something. Because the prarabdha karma has already started. You cannot do anything about it. Okay, in the sense that it has started giving results. It is like a missile or an arrow which has already left the bow. Okay, an arrow has already left the bow. Now what can you do? It is going towards its target, and whatever it is going to hit, it is not very pleasant. But still you have an option. What is that? You take another arrow and send it faster than the original arrow and hit that arrow and maybe try to change its course. That is what in missile defense also they do that, correct? One missile is already coming towards your country. What do? You send another missile and try to stop it from going to its intended target. You intercept it in between itself. That is what is a prayaschitta karma. So astrologers are able to give you prayaschitta karma. and you are supposed to do that, means then at least whatever comes for your head goes with your whatever turban, correct? So there, even in Mahabharata, if you see, Arjuna must have died in the hands of Karna, but Arjuna had Bhagavan on his side, correct? So what did Bhagavan do? When Karna sent the arrow, Arjuna really had no answer to that particular astra. Okay. But what did Bhagavan do? He pressed with his feet the bhumi, and that entire place went down a little bit. Okay, along with the chariot and everything, it went down. Then what happened? That astra, that arrow, took Arjuna's whatever crown he was wearing, correct, as a prince. In fact, for a Kshatriya, even that is equivalent to death. But he did not really die. Whatever came for his head only took his crown away. And he survived. And he went on to kill Karna, in fact. So that is the idea of Prarabdha and Prayaschitta. Understand this. So Prayaschitta is, again, you are producing antibodies. Like already a virus is there. That is like Prarabdha Karma. But if you are giving some antibodies and then trying to neutralize that, so that's what astrologers predict and also prescribe. So they really predict based on the model which they have, your Prarabdha Karma. And according to the Prarabdha, what will happen if you don't do anything. But if you do something, they also give always some Prayaschitta. And after doing Prayaschitta, many people complain, nothing happened. In fact, if nothing happened, then it worked. Understand that. So you should not complain really. You did the Prayaschitta so that nothing should happen really. If something has happened, then it will be a big problem. So you avoided that. You can take it like that. Then in this life also, everyone has a certain free will. Understand that. In fact, we have free will at multiple levels. One level is what? You have the free will to accept whatever is happening in your life. Okay. And the way you actually accept it is still in your hands, correct? Something pleasant may be happening to you. Something unpleasant may be happening to you. But the way you react to a particular situation, whether you accept the reality of the situation and do something, or you are whiling away, complaining, and being depressed, like why is this happening to me? If you are immobilized like that, then you will be in sorrow. You will be depressed. Whenever you are able to accept the reality and do something about it, then there is no sorrow. You may be in difficulty, you may be in hard times, but hard times never last for anybody. Understand that. And good times also will not last. So even according to our astrological model, after 30 years, Shani comes to the same place. So there is a 30-year cycle. So nobody escapes. Neither good times will last forever, nor bad times. So one has to take it in one's stride. And if you are able to do something about it, then it is always easier to face a particular situation. And whatever you do, that is in your hands. That is your free will, in fact. And when you do something right, again you are gaining some punya. When you do something wrong, you are gaining papa. That is called agami karma. Understand, this life already some karma is fructifying. That is the prarabdha. Whatever you are gaining also, it may fructify later in this life, or it can go to the next life also, we don't know. These things are all grey areas. Only Bhagavan knows. That's why Bhagavan is the giver of the results of our action. Is that clear? This karma also you can only analyze up to a certain point. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan finally says, Gahana karmano gatihi. So he says, do not analyze it too much, but understand that there is papa, punya, that's what is, every day it is getting exhausted, the papa or punya. So if you have had some pleasant experience, understand some punya has been spent. If you have some unpleasant experience, at least be relieved that some papa is gone already. Okay, so, and everything is your own doing. That's why this theory of karma is the greatest psychological shock absorber. Okay, it's a shock absorber. Why? Because if you are able to accept karma, then it is your own responsibility. Whatever is happening in your life, whether it is good or bad, whether it is pleasant, unpleasant, easy, tough, hard, whatever it is, everything is your own doing. You take responsibility. You do not blame the world. You do not blame Bhagavan. You can't blame anybody else. It is your karma. You are undergoing the experiences because of that. It's your own doing. Of course, you still have the ability to change it. Okay, by doing prasthita, by doing the right thing at least now, so that the agami karma will fructify pleasantly. That is the understanding. So in fact, one analogy we can give with reference to this karma and free will is what? Prarabdha karma is like a flowing river. So the current is going in one direction. Now you are the one who is swimming in this river and you are putting effort. Now the result is what? Is a function of your effort plus the whatever current, the flow. And it depends also on which direction you are swimming. If you are swimming against the current with a lot of effort also, you may be in the same place. In fact, that itself is a big accomplishment. Otherwise, if you don't put any effort, you would have gone downstream. Or if you have so much willpower and all that and you put so much effort, you are able to swim against the current. Something great. Or your goal itself is not to swim against the current and all that. I am happy going along with the current. This is what Bhagavan has given me in this life. Why am I struggling? That is also one attitude, correct? You just flow with your life. Whatever is happening in your life day to day, take it as it comes, flow with it. Then there is no struggle also, correct? You don't have to put in all the effort and all that. You go with whatever is there. Bhagavan's order is only fructifying as this life and this world and the experiences which you are going through. It's all part of a certain order. Let it happen. So again, it all depends on your attitude and your understanding. Both are very important. In fact, your attitude itself should be born of a particular type of understanding, means then it is best for you as a person. So this much I hope all of you are able to understand. It is nothing great. Of course, I expect a lot of questions in all these things, but whatever it is, you can ask me. Then also all this good, bad, evil and all is there, correct? At an individual level we understand. But what about tsunami? Okay, tsunami, earthquake, or even this coronavirus is there now. So what do we do? Even in contract and all, we have a terminology, correct? Act of God. Act of God. Even those who do not accept God use that term in the contracts. If there is or they call it force majeure. Okay. So if there is an act of God and we are not able to fulfill whatever we have to do as per the contractual obligations, then you should not put any penalty on us or something like that. We normally have a clause. So this act of God means then we say God is merciful and all that. How can God do this? Means understand one thing. In our tradition, Ishvara, Bhagavan is manifest as this world. Whatever is there here, whether it is good, bad, evil, everything is part of Ishvara's order only. Is that clear? Everything is part of Ishvara's order. And whatever one is experiencing as an individual or one is experiencing as part of a community, everything is part of this order only. Also, even in a given situation, everybody does not experience the certain things in the same way. In fact, some people are enjoying now all this lockdown and sitting at home, and some people enjoy this. So it is actually a pleasant experience for them. For others, it is actually making them crazy. Okay, let me say. They are not enjoying. So any given situation, even though overall it may look like something bad, terrible is happening, but all of us are not reacting to that, or how we actually take it is not in the same manner. So anyway, so everything is part of the order only. That is why in Rudram and all, when we chant, we say Namas Taskaraya. Even a thief, you are the thief. Okay. So whatever we think is good, bad, ugly, evil, everything is Ishvara's order. In fact, there is one sect of people called Aghori. In fact, I studied in Banaras, my engineering, not anything else. And there these Aghoris are supposed to live in certain areas. Okay. So why they are looked at with a certain fear also by normal people. Why? Because Aghoris say everything is Bhagavan, everything is Ishvara. Means even dead body is Ishvara. Okay. Literally everything is Bhagavan only for them. Then why are you making any difference? So in their sadhana, they do some things like eating dead flesh, etc. Okay, so because they literally look upon everything as Bhagavan. So for us, everything is sacred. That means there is no division of this is profane, this is sacred, because everything is a manifestation of Ishvara. But within this, still we see that there are some people are maniacal. Okay, they have problems. So how do we account for it? Means we have to understand that one is driven by one's own likes and dislikes. Your likes and dislikes only matter to you. You don't mind putting others into discomfort. Okay, discomfort is a very light word, I think. You don't mind stepping on the toes of others if you are able to feel good. Okay, such people are there. They are also part of Ishvara's Srishti only. But in those people, what is happening? Only their ego alone is there. They are going only by their likes and dislikes. But there is no Bhagavan then. So if you go only by your ego, by your own likes and dislikes, without any concern for what is right, what is wrong, and how other people are affected by your own action, if you are not able to have a certain mastery over your likes and dislikes, then you are actually going against dharma, against the order. And you will reap the results for that. Understand that. Whenever you do anything wrong, whenever you hurt somebody, in the short term, maybe the drishta phala, you may be feeling something. I don't know. Even then, I think they cannot feel really good about themselves when you are hurting somebody, correct? Our makeup is such that we can be happy only when all others are also happy along with us. So, but still some people have such a tendency. They are misusing their free will. Means they are going against the order. And if you go against the order, you will also get whatever for that. Okay, that is also part of the order. In fact, you will get the results for that. So wrong behavior will be punished. Whoever it is, even rulers, dictators, and all, they get their results. Okay, so they are eventually punished by other people, other rulers, but they have also accumulated papa. They cannot escape from that. Understand that? That is part of the order. They have to enjoy the results of their papa, experience that. We cannot call it enjoy really, but they have to experience the results of their papa. And again, but still, how do we account for all this tsunami, earthquakes, etc.? Okay, so that again we have to say, this is where there is a certain way of understanding these things. So when we look at the world which we are encountering, correct, along with ourselves as an individual, we say adhyatmikam. Adhyatmikam means what? Certain things with reference to yourself as a physical body is there. I have a body, I have a mind. So we have certain afflictions at the level of our body, mind, sense complex itself. Okay, that is called adhyatmika tapa. Then we also have our surroundings, adi bhautika, it is called, because all this entire world is made up of pancha bhuta. We have a model, 5 elemental model of this creation. Okay, so adi bhautikam means with reference to whatever the elemental world in which we are there, our surroundings. So surroundings also can afflict you. You see some nice photograph, tourist place, you go there, one mosquito is good enough to spoil your entire vacation, your mood, etc. Correct? That was not there in the photo, of course. Photo is very nice. You go there, one mosquito bites you, you get malaria or something, gone. Or even that mosquito itself can disturb you. It can come near your ear and keep shouting. It will make some noise. You are not able to sit peacefully. That's all adi bhautika tapa. Then adi daivikam also we say. Because our idea of ecology, let us say, we have a sacred ecology. Let me put a word like that. Okay. Because normal food cycle and ecology means they are only talking about a certain cycle within the earth, correct? Because all food is created only by plants, understand that. Because plants alone can do photosynthesis. Animals do not do photosynthesis. Plants alone do photosynthesis. So food is created only by plants. Even our Veda says, Oshadibhyonnam. So Anna is from Oshadhi. Oshadhi means plants. So Anna, food is always from plants. You can eat the plant or you can eat an animal which eats the plant. Correct? But finally food is coming only from plants and then it has to go back to the earth when the animal dies and plant will consume that. There is a certain cycle. That is an ecological cycle. And in fact, in between, even one predator or one species dies, then that whole ecological cycle may get affected. Correct? It doesn't work in the same way. Similarly, we have a sacred ecology. In Bhagavad Gita also, Bhagavan says that in the 3rd chapter. What is the sacred ecology? That there are devas. So when we look at the whole creation as different phenomena, same Bhagavan looked at from the standpoint of a phenomenon like lightning, rain, thunder, the ocean. We give names and we call them devatas. That is why we have 33 crore devatas. Okay. 33 crore means I think 330 million, if I have to say in modern language. So 330 million devatas are there for us. Because if you look at Ishvara from the standpoint of a particular phenomenon, that we call devata. And what does Bhagavan Krishna say in the Gita? He says, Devan bhavayata nena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha shreyah paramavapsyatha. He says that you have to take care of all these devatas. That is why you have to do all this daily. We have some prayers, some rituals are all there. Nitya karma, then Naimitika karma, like that. Kamya karma also is there. Based on your desire also you can do some rituals. Vaidika rituals are there. So you take care of the devatas and they will take care of you in turn. Parasparam bhavayantaha. Then he says. So you take care of each other, then you attain Shreyas, everything is fine. But if you do not take care of the devatas, then the devatas also are, they are reacting, let us say. That's how we understand. That is called Adi Bhautika Tapa. In fact, that is why we chant Om Shanti 3 times. Whenever we do any prayer, finally we say Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Why? Because we are saying, let all this, whatever prayer I have done, the result of that, may it free me from the afflictions which are there at the Adhyatmika level first. My own body, mind, sense complex afflictions are there, disease is there. I am not even able to sit for 1 hour for this class. That itself is a problem. Then Adi Bhautika, my surroundings also, whatever afflictions, let it not affect me. May I be free. And also from all this, from the devatas, things like you are sitting somewhere, if earthquake happens, what will you do? You cannot do anything much. Or a tsunami comes. Okay, so it's not easy to survive. So we are, in every prayer, we are asking freedom from all these afflictions. So we look at it like that. It's all Adhyatmika, Adi Bhautika, or Adi Daivika only. All these things are happening. That also we have to take it as an accumulated effect of the misuse of our free will only. Understand that. So that is how we account for all these things. Okay. Then we are actually now going into another topic totally, which is part of the original questions we said that we will address in this series of classes, correct? But I think now, since we have taken a reasonable amount of time now, let us say there is one question is that if devatas have power to control events that happen to us, then can they deduct good karma? No, it is not about deducting your good karma or anything. They are doing whatever they are empowered to do, let us say, correct? Because devatas are also are operating within the order, Bhagavan's order only. And they have certain powers, let us say, and they are using that power. And that when they use it in certain ways, it is not pleasant experience for us. When they use it in certain ways, it is good for us, pleasant for us. So like that, we have to understand it. That's all. So the devatas also we have. That's why the human being in our tradition is looked upon as having. We are all debtors. Okay, we are all having debt or rina. So human being is looked upon as a rini. And what kind of debt we have? We have a debt towards our ancestors, because without our ancestors, we cannot be there here today, correct? Our ancestors, they lived a certain life, and that is how we managed to come here, okay? And so we have a certain rina towards our ancestors. The very fact that you are born in a certain family, you are born in a certain place to a certain parents and all that, you are indebted to your ancestors. That is called Pitru Rina. Then we are also indebted to all our rishis or whoever. There is a certain lineage is there, Guru Parampara. Knowledge is flowing, correct? Jnana Ganga we say, that's why. So this knowledge also has been given to us by our rishis. And nowadays we have to include all scientists and all these people also, right? Everybody is standing. Nobody can claim that you have created something. You have always created something first by learning something, correct? People have taught you right from ABCD onwards, AIE onwards, you have been taught. So you are already standing on the shoulders of others. So you have a certain debt towards the rishis also. Rishi. Then you also have debt towards the devatas. Because as soon as you are born, the whole world is there for you, correct? Already it is a given. Everything is given to you, in fact. The whole life is given. When you are born, there is an atmosphere with the right amount of nitrogen and oxygen, etc. Otherwise, you can't even breathe. Water is given. If there is no proper rain, you are not going to get any water. Then how are you going to survive? Food is given. The whole earth is fertile. It is able to produce food. Plants are there. Everything is given. So we have to recognize the giver. We have to have a certain gratitude. And that is why it is said that you are having this rina, and every day we are supposed to pray. There is a certain rituals are there, correct? We call. So we do, even in our daily prayers, we take care of all this. We even take care of the other bhuta bali and all we do. All the beings which are there around us also, they are helping us in some way or the other, correct? So we have to take care of even those beings. So that way we have all this debt or rina, and we have to actually pay back. If we don't pay back, in fact, Bhagavan says in Gita itself, if you don't pay back all these things, if you do not take care of the devatas and still enjoy whatever is there here, you are like a thief. Stena eva saha, he says. Yo bhungte stena eva saha, the one who is enjoying but without contributing. That person is a thief. In fact, how do we even understand growth, that you have become an adult? Okay, let us simply analyze that. One is an adult or one is a child. Who is a child? When a child is born, child cannot do anything, correct? In fact, it's totally dependent on others. So child is a pure consumer. Child is consuming everything from its parents and the surroundings and society. So child is a total consumer. Then when you grow up, when you become an adult, you are an adult when you are contributing more than you are consuming, correct? Just physically you grow up, you may still be a child if you are only consuming and you are not contributing anything. So the more you contribute, more your emotional growth, the more you become an adult. That's how we look at it. So, and this contribution is also towards taking care of all these debts also, correct? So you have to contribute to our devatas, our ancestors, our rishis. Of course, you have to contribute towards your family. Those things are all given already, because that is all part of your duty. So we have a culture which stresses on duty rather than rights. So if everybody does their duty correctly, everybody's rights also will be taken care of. So that's how we look at it. Okay, so here some more questions are coming now. Can good karma save us from some of Devata's wrath? Of course. So even if I told you, correct, even if something happens which is affecting everybody, not everybody is being affected by it in the same manner, correct? If you have good karma, even during the present crisis, not everybody is affected in the same way. In fact, some industries are booming, others are losing their jobs. That's all. Karma only, correct? Karma of the parent affect their children. No, everybody's karma is their karma. But the child being born to a certain parents is the child's karma. Or parents having a certain type of children is their karma. Okay? Significance of 108 that I will tell separately. Okay, if everything is a function of our karma, then are our current actions also a function of the result of our karma? No, this is what I explained, correct? We have a free will. So that is why I gave the example or analogy of a flowing river and your effort in swimming in that and all that. So both are there. Okay, but of course, given a certain situation, you may act in a certain manner, but you still have the free will to act differently. You can act, you need not act, you can do differently. Kartum shakyate, akartum shakyate, anyatha va kartum shakyate, like that we say in Sanskrit. You can do, you need not do, you can do differently. That is still there with you. Okay. But whether you really use your free will also is something we have to see. Okay. But everything is predestined, we don't say that. Then you do not have any way of doing prayasita also, correct? So we have prayasita is a huge thing in our Dharma Shastra. Hundreds of pages are there. Okay, so that is why we have a certain purushartha, an ability to do, and how we use that ability, that power. See, we are all having three Shaktis: Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti. And how we utilize that, that is there still in our hands. So nobody can take it away from you. Okay, Devatas are like officials who need to perform a set of duty. Correct. They also have, it is like a post only because they get that Devata post because of whatever punya they have done in their previous life. Is that clear? So due to some very high punya only, they get all this exalted Devata life. And they are doing certain duty as the Devata. You can understand like that. That is correct. Whether it is better to be born as human or animal. Definitely human. So it is better to be born as a human being. In fact, we say it is only a great jantunam narajanmam durlabham, we say. Amongst all the beings, getting this life of a human being is a great blessing. Okay, because we have free will, we have the ability to know, and we have the ability to pursue moksha also here. Right here, we have the ability to know the truth about ourselves. Even for Devatas, it is difficult, in fact. But human life is a mixture of papa and punya. Therefore, we have better experiences of both punya and papa, and we are able to analyze that and then arrive at the truth better. So, Narajanma, having taken this Janma, you should not waste it. That's what everybody says. There is even a song in Tamil, correct? Nanda Vanathil or Andi, Nalaru Madamai Kuyavanai Vendi, Kondu Vandanoru Tondi, like that. So, Kutadi Kutadi Potudai Tandi means for 10 months you are there in the womb and you got this body. Okay. And this is a great chance for you to know your truth, to live a certain type of life. But if you do not do that, if you are only going after your likes and dislikes without any regard for what is dharma, what is right, what is wrong, then you are literally kutadi potu udai tandi, he says. You have destroyed your own life, the chance you got. Okay, so this is a great blessing that you have. Okay, do contributions mean doing rituals or contributing towards our society and fellow human beings? Both. One does not actually they are not mutually exclusive. But okay, some people may not have time to do certain things, let us say. But still, whatever you can do, you should do on a daily basis, certain things, certain prayers, sometime everybody will have, correct? So you have to do that. Of course, you have to take care of your duties with reference. We are all playing different roles, and whatever is required of those roles, as a father, mother, employer, employee, n number of roles are there. Teacher, student, you have to do that. Your role, you have to do. Whatever is asked of your role, you have to do that. Okay. Okay, that is all related to karma only. When you say mass population deaths due to natural disaster and all that, so many of those people, karma is over. That means their prarabdha karma is over. That's why they have to leave. Whether they leave through regular disease or some disaster is not in our hands. That is all part of Ishvara's order. Okay, so when somebody dies, means their karma is over. Particularly if it is not due to somebody's misuse of a free will, let us say. Okay, then it is their karma is over. They have to take another body. Like even once your shirt is old, you throw it away, you wear a new shirt, correct? That's what Bhagavan gives this analogy in Bhagavad Gita. It's like discarding an old shirt which is already torn and you wear a new one. Is it clear? Then what? How do we contribute back to our ancestors or Devata? Through prayers only. Yes, there are specific prayers are there. Tarpana is there. Yearly it is there. Every fortnight it is there. Correct? Amavasya and all that. Even Mahalaya Paksha is supposed to come now. That is specially you are supposed to pray to your ancestors during that period. Everybody. Astrology is a pramana. Yes. Anything which is coming from rishis. Jyotisha is a part of the Vedanta. Is it clear? Can we trust astrology? Means it depends on the astrologer also. So it is more about whether your astrologer knows the Shastra correctly or not. Yes. Through Shraddham we contribute to our Pitrus. Yes, we do contribute. Whatever we do there, it goes to them. That is our belief again. Okay, you cannot have any proof and all, but that's what is said by our Shreshtas. Okay, whoever we consider to be a reliable source of information, they are all saying that. Okay, I understand that rituals are an expression of emotion towards Bhagavan, but how did we arrive at the conclusion that Bhagavan would prefer a highly elaborate puja? Okay, so both are important. Your bhavana is what you are saying when you are conversing. While doing that puja also, which is highly elaborate, you can have still a conversation with Bhagavan, correct? Again, these two are not mutually exclusive, or you have to do only one or the other. And a highly elaborate puja can be even a kamya karma. It may depend on what you really want, correct? Always it is not prescribed. In fact, the daily nitya karma are not really highly elaborate. That only people are not doing. It's all very simple thing. So anything highly elaborate again depends on your desire only. Okay, does free will depend on Purva Janma Vasanas? Free will is constrained, I would say. It is not depending on or anything. It can be constrained by your habitual tendencies or impressions which are there. Then what? Being born as an animal also, does it accumulate papa or punya? No. Animal does not have free will, so it is only papa kshaya or punya kshaya. Similarly, devatas also is purely, they are exhausting their punya because it's a punya birth. Animals are mostly considered to be papa birth. They are just exhausting the karma only. Only human life we are gaining papa punya. Okay, rituals are of many types. There are many types of rituals, daily duties. Okay, you are giving some your own opinion. I think that is fine. Will we get good karma if we do the rituals without devotion? Good question. So, I think if you are doing that ritual, some level of understanding you should have about, or some people may simply do it as an insurance. But if you do it, since it is a karma, you will get results. But if you do it with the right bhavana, result will be even better. That's all we can say. Okay, it's sometimes difficult to say what is right and wrong. Correct. That is what we call dharma sankata. again, as a human being, you have the responsibility to find out what is right and wrong, even if you are confused. So you have to go to such people who will give you right advice. You go to your guru or you go to elders in your family, and they should be such people who will advise you, keeping your good and the greater good in mind, not their own welfare. They should not have any conflict of interest. You have to take advice from such people who do not keep, they should be dharma kamaha, like that the Upanishad says. Okay, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, the same, for this question there is an answer. Okay, it says ye tatra brahmana sammarshinaha yuktaha aluksha dharma kamasyuhu. Like that it is defined. Aluksha, those who are not interested in their own welfare when you are giving, when they are giving advice to you, and they are dharma kamaha. They are desirous to establish whatever is dharma in a given situation, and they give you advice like that. Means you take their advice and then do. Is it clear? So you have a responsibility to know what is right or wrong. Ignorance is not a defense. Okay, so I think mostly we have seen all the questions, and we have also almost come, or we have shot ahead of the time, I think. So we will close it here, and we'll continue with this certain rituals and all that about that tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.